What's up, everybody? Welcome to the third of the season preview and prediction videos that I'm doing this year for the NFL. This week, today, we are doing the Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions. Jalen Hurts still there, inventors of the tush push. What can we say? They might very well be the most exciting team in the league. Last year, of course, they won Super Bowl 59, putting an end to the infamous quest for a three-peat by the Chiefs. And most of the roster actually still returns. There's a few minor changes, like Brandon Graham's not going to be there anymore, and a couple of wide receivers that's not going to be there. But overall, they returned most of the talent from last year that made them so great. Biggest departure is on the coaching staff, as offensive coordinator Kellen Moore has been hired to be the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. They promote their passing game coordinator as the offensive coordinator, so we'll see how that works out. There's been questions in the past about Nick Sirianni if he's actually a great coach, because in years where he doesn't have good coordinators, the Eagles just fall on their face. So we'll see, because 2 of the years that Nick Sirianni's been there, they made it to the Super Bowl. One, they won. That other year, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. We'll see which version of the Eagles shows up and which version of Nick Sirianni shows up in 2025. There's actually not really a lot to talk about in this section, so let's just go straight on to the schedule preview and prediction. First game of the season is going to be on the Thursday night, as is tradition with the Super Bowl winner. They play the first game of the year, and it's usually on a Thursday night at home against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys, I don't have a lot of high hopes for this year. They didn't hire a big name coach. They hired Brian Schottenheimer, who doesn't really inspire a lot of enthusiasm. He wasn't even a great coordinator. And really, it speaks to the heart of the problem, which is all the way at the top, Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones let the success he had early on with Jimmy Johnson as the head coach, where they won 3 Super Bowls, get to his head, and now he's stuck in the mindset that it's his way or the highway, which unfortunately has been the fault of to the fault of the Cowboys, and it's not getting any better. And I think in Week 1, the Eagles destroy the Cowboys. But then after that week, you get your toughest game of the year, as you're going on the road to Arrowhead Stadium in a Super Bowl 59 rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs. And you can bet the Kansas City Chiefs have the game against the Eagles circled in red on their calendar, saying this is the game that they have to win. Not that they can't look past the other 16 games on the schedule, but the game the Chiefs most want to win this year is in Week 2 when the Eagles come to town, simply because of the embarrassment that was Super Bowl 59 for the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs get it done in Week 2. You're going to their stadium. The crowd is going to be like no other crowd we've seen in Arrowhead Stadium before. Patrick Mahomes still the greatest QB in the league until proven otherwise. Chiefs still the most talented roster until proven otherwise. I think the Chiefs get it done in Week 2 at Arrowhead. Good thing is, afterwards you get to come back home to play the Rams. I think you get it done there. At Tampa Bay, I think you also win that one. I've said it before that I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a good team, held back by a subpar head coach. And I think you go into their stadium in this big situation, because Todd Bowles does not have a good reputation of coaching the Buccaneers to big wins. I think you win this one. Then you come back home to play the Denver Broncos. I think you win that one. Broncos, they're a good team, but not a great team. Now, granted, Bo Nix did have a good year in his first year, and I think the Broncos are on the up and up, but I still don't have confidence to where I have them beating the Eagles in week 5 on the road. So I think the Eagles get that one. Then you go on the road. You do have a short turnaround with this game, but it is on the road against the Giants. I think you win that one. Even with the short turnaround, I think it really doesn't matter. I think Brian Daboll is going to be out of New York after this year. How does he still have a job at this point? Um, Giants may be one of the worst talent teams ever, and I think you get the win. Then you go on the road, back-to-back road games against Minnesota, and this time against Minnesota. I think you lose this one. I think, um, despite losing Sam Darnold, who got into the playoffs last year, JJ McCarthy, who was probably going to be the starter at some point last year, but got injured. He's taking over the team. Vikings still a very talented group. Kevin O'Connell, one of the best young coaches in the NFL this year. I think the Vikings get the win this in the on the road against Minnesota. Then you get your second game in 3 weeks against the Giants, and I think you also run through that one too. So I think, and that is going to take you to your bye week in week 9. So I think going into your bye week, you are 6-2 with your losses being to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Minnesota Vikings. You come out of your bye week and you play a Monday night game, so it's sort of an extended bye week there for the Eagles as you go on the road on Monday night to play the Packers. If it wasn't for the fact that you got the bye week before that one, I think the Packers would win. But because you got that bye week, I think you will win that one against the Green Bay Packers. This, of course, is also a rematch from last year's playoffs. But I think, again, with the extra bye week combined with the fact that the Packers have to play a game the week before, I think you win this one. Then you go home against Detroit in a primetime game. If this were on the road, I would say that the Lions have the advantage, but also Lions lose both their coordinators. Has the prime window for the Lions to finally break the curse of Bobby Lane. Pass them up. We thought last year they would go to the Super Bowl, but instead they lost in the divisional round. And of course, they were dominating in 2023's NFC Championship game, only to have the 49ers come back. Has the curse continued, and will the Lions be permanently cursed under Bobby Lane? We're starting to lean toward yes here. I think you get the win over the Lions. Then you get your game at Dallas. I think you also win this one. I think you sweep Dallas this year. They're not really any good. I don't think they're going to be any good. If Dak Prescott wants to salvage his reputation, he better get out of there next year and go to a team that will actually benefit from his talents instead of just wasting his talents away. Because the Cowboys are a complete clusterfuck. Yes, I said it. They're a complete clusterfuck. And until Jerry Jones is no longer the general manager and owner of the Cowboys, they're going to continue to be one of those. Then you go back home on Thursday night. No, actually, this time it's actually going to be a special Friday night. Friday game against the Chicago Bears, and I think you win this one. Chicago, not really a lot to write home about. Then on a Monday night, so a slightly extended week there, as you go from playing a Friday game to playing a Monday night game. This time on the road against Los Angeles Chargers. So you play both Los Angeles teams this year. One of them you get at home with the Rams, but this one with the Chargers you get on the road. I think you actually win this one. I think the fact that you have a slightly extended week gives you a slight advantage against the Chargers, and I think you win that one. Coming back home, you played the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 15. I think you win that one. Not really a lot to write home about. They do have Pete Carroll, but he's coming off of a year in retirement where he did absolutely nothing. Geno Smith, while a decent quarterback, isn't going to take the Raiders to the next level. And so I think the Raiders actually take a loss on this one. Unfortunately, however, you get the toughest 3 weeks you have on the entire schedule from weeks 16 through 18. because this is how the schedule is going to work out for the Eagles in week 16 through 18. On the road against the Commanders, followed by on the road against the Buffalo Bills, followed by at home against the Commanders. Week 16 against the Commanders, you're playing on a Saturday. No word yet on what time slot it's going to be in. It could be a noon slot. It could be a afternoon slot, or depending on what time the playoffs are, it could end up being a night slot. Either way, on the road against the Commanders, I think you lose that one. Jayden Daniels, we are expecting some big things out of that kid because he did amazing in 2024, and I think single-handedly changed the outlook of most fans for the Commanders. After so much years of dismality, they can finally make it to the NFC Championship. And I think this year they're looking to do even better. And I think on the road against the Commanders, I think the Eagles lose in week 16. And then it doesn't get any easier the following week because you have to go on the road to Orchard Park to play the Buffalo Bills. I think you also lose that one for reasons that I explained in the Bills video. Plus, you're adding in the fact that they're coming off the emotional, probably loss against the Commanders and then have to go on the road to play the Bills. I think that catches up to them and they lose. And then afterwards in week 18, at some time to be determined, I would not be shocked if this is to determine who wins the division. You're at home against the Commanders. However, after that kind of stretch where you have to go on the road to Commanders, then you play the Buffalo Bills, and then you have to come home. I think that stretch catches up to you, and I think your last 3 games of the season, you go 0-3. I think the Commanders beat you both times. I think the Commanders actually win the NFC East this year. And so there you have it. I think in total, the Eagles are going to go 12-5. I think they lose in week 2 against the Chiefs. I think they lose in week 7? Yeah, week 7 against Minnesota. Then I think they lose week 16, 17, and 18 as they have to go on the road against the Commanders, on the road against the Bills, and at home against the Commanders in consecutive weeks. I think they strike out in those 3 weeks. Although I do think 12-5 will definitely be enough to get you in the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be enough for you to win the division this year. I think the Commanders are actually going to come out of the Eagles' shadow to win the division this year. Can they make a good playoff run? They probably can. I'm not really. There's not really a lot of wild cards that I think can make a better run than the Eagles this year. Division winners, I think you have the Commanders in the East. I think you have the Buccaneers in the South. Then I don't even know who would probably win the other divisions in the NFC. I think the Vikings probably win the North. And what's the other one? The West. Yeah, the Rams probably win that one single-handedly. Who are the wild cards that I think could probably make a better run than if the Eagles were a wild card? Seattle, definitely not. There's no NFC South teams that can make a better run. Forget it. If things come together for the 49ers this year, then maybe they can have a better shot as a wild card than the Eagles, but that depends on a lot of factors. Definitely not any teams in the rest of the NFC East. The Cowboys and the Giants, I don't think are going to make the playoffs this year. I already mentioned the NFC South. That's one's a cluster. NFC North, maybe the Lions, maybe the Packers, but there's none that you can definitely say that if the Eagles were to make it as a wild card, that other wild cards would make a bigger run. In fact, if the Eagles make it as the 5th seed, I would take them over whoever ends up winning the division as the 4th seed. Anyway, that's my preview and prediction of the Eagles. As I said, I am alternating between predictions for this channel and predictions for the Roll Tide 99 channel. So the next one will be a college football preview and prediction video on Roll Tide 99. That, as I said in the my last Roll Tide 99 video, will be the Texas Longhorns. I'm shooting for that to come out on Sunday. The next one on this channel is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we will have a special guest on this channel. I'm not going to spoil it yet. I'm going to let you find out when the video comes out. But there will be a special guest on Monday on this channel when I preview and predict for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anyway, in the meantime, subscribe to GoPats99 if you're not already. Subscribe to Roll Tide 99 and if you're not already. And I will see you in the next video. Peace out.